How we doing, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of the PrimeTime Patriots podcast. As always, your host, Jake Mott. With me is Ryan Mattson. Excited. Not so excited, actually, because it was a bad week. Bad week for New England. We're going to recap the game last week against Miami Dolphins and take a look ahead to the New York Jets. So I'll start with you, Ryan. What do you think about Patriots Dolphins Week 1 opener?
Definitely disappointed the way things panned out, but I think we looked pretty well defensively. I think there were some big time mistakes in terms of when Miami was trying to score at the end there and trying to put the game away with 2-3 minutes left. I thought the defense played kind of nervous or scared or something. There was a play that I recall when it was 1st and 14 on the 10, Dolphins 10. And there was a slant to Parker, and he got 12 yards on a first down, or 13, and ended up being a 2nd and 1. And I think at that point, you got to step it up. You got to get to the quarterback. You got to make a play.
Yeah, they're kind of playing on their heels instead.
Yeah, I think they got to be more of an enforcer. But overall, I thought defensively they played pretty well. And offensively, I thought Mac played pretty good. Very accurate. What was he, 29 for 39?
I believe. I know he was.
29 for 39.
He was 74%.
29 for 39, 281, and a touchdown. He averaged 7.2. I thought he played pretty well in terms of accuracy. Obviously, putting the ball on the ground, concerns there, but I don't think he's going to be like that in the future. But we definitely got to work on that. Completion percentage, 74.4. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, obviously running backs.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on
the big mistake by Harris at the end there, yeah. But I mean, in terms of how they played, I didn't think they played horrible. Mm-hmm. But definitely got to fix some things up.
Absolutely. No, I agree. The first thing that I wrote down right away was the running backs, specifically Ramondre Stevenson, because there was a lot of, especially when you get rid of Sony Michel, the idea is that you have at least a certain level of trust in the Stevenson to carry a load. He's your best pure runner after Damian Harris. And the first thing we saw is the fumble on his first drive out there. Just can't have it. Was his butt down? Was it not down? Maybe. We don't, but doesn't matter. Fumble's a fumble. Mm-hmm. Jets get the ball there. And then he comes out for another drive later in the game, is in pass protection.
Oh, that was the worst one.
Gets absolutely depleted by the linebacker for the Dolphins, who then proceeds to almost break Mac's leg.
Yep, I had that written down too.
And it's you just can't have it. So, that was the last time, for the right reasons, that you saw him in that game.
Yeah, he looked like a deer in headlights getting absolutely blown.
Absolutely. He needs more time to figure out and get that NFL stuff. And, this is where, I know we were talking about the Sony Michel trade. I wouldn't go back on what we did, but I do feel like if Sony Michel is on this team for whatever reason, you win that game. 100%. Because, even if Damian Harris is still out there at the end of the game, which I think is the right call, he's your best back, he's not on his 25th, 26th carry, whatever it was. He's not as gassed. He pulled himself out once or twice on that last drive because he just could not go anymore. Yeah. We were riding him, especially after those crappy plays from Stevenson. It was all Damian Harris. Unless it was an obvious passing down, there was some James White mixed in.
Yeah.
But, no. And then, so obviously the fumbles were the big thing, and then the penalties were the big thing.
That's another thing I had written down, too.
I thought our weakest unit by far was our offensive line, especially with the amount of hype that has come in. They made 3 or 4 signings to try to beef up this line. There's been a lot of talk about how this is the best line in the division, no question about it. And they just looked really crappy. 8 penalties for 84 yards. That's the whole team. But a good chunk of those were holdings and bad plays by the line that just made a lot of great plays get pulled back.
Yeah. Offensive line was a huge disappointment this week. especially after we talked about it plenty of times on this podcast. They beefed up the line. We thought it was going to be a great showcase for them. Mm-hmm. They come out and they put that up. It wasn't what we thought was going to happen, not what we need to happen, and they need to figure that out.
Absolutely. Mac took 9 QB hits, which led the entire
league. You want to know
league.
what, though?
Just can't happen.
He only took 1 sack.
Yes, so exactly. I
looking
think that
at
speaks
that,
to Mac.
That's kind of what I was saying. He got the ball out. Incompletions most likely, but you'd rather an incompletion than a 5-yard, 10-yard loss. So.
Absolutely, 100%. So getting more specifically to Mac, I thought he looked really good. I gave him a 7 out of 10, potentially 7.5. But when you don't win the game, you gotta just. It is what it is. Winning's the most important thing. So I gave him a 7. He had the weird fumble that we already talked about to Johnny on the first drive. I'm willing to give him that. That's weird. Obviously, if they get the ball, we're talking totally different story. But it was a very weird play. He's trying to get it to his receiver, and he puts it on the ground intentionally to try to do an incomplete pass. So I see what he's going for, but weird decision there. Other than that, his decision-making, I thought, was really as good as you could ask for. He didn't really make any glaring bad decisions in the game. Like he was always going to the right guy, even if it was a check down where you're only picking up a couple of yards. It usually was the right read and the right play.
Yep.
And I thought people should know exactly the play I'm talking about. The best pass was the one to James White on 3rd down, just right in the breadbasket. He had maybe a step and a half, maybe half a step on the guy, and Mac was still just lofted it right over him. Dropped it right in the breadbasket. Beautiful, kind of overall way to say that's how Mac Jones' game is. Yeah. I think it was a good sum up of the kind of player he is. We talked about the pressure. I thought he handled the pressure really well. He stepped up in the pocket when he had to. He had a beautiful pass falling back where he went to Jacoby Myers.
Yes.
That was a great throw as well. And I think a lot of people, the biggest knock against Mac Jones was this guy's a complete statue. This guy can't move. I think in the pocket, his movement is as good as you'd want from any guy in the pocket. He moves around there and he steps up and he kind of has that sixth sense where he knows when somebody's coming from his blind side. He knows it's time to get off. He has that clock in his head. He had a great scramble that got called back because of the O-line where he makes a couple guys miss in the pocket, scrambles out, rolls right, and he ended up hitting Kendrick Bourne deep.
Yeah.
And it ended up getting called back for a penalty. But that's something, if you showed that to people before the draft or anything, they're like, Mac Jones is not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's not going to be Mac Jones. But I think he did show he can be mobile enough when he has to be.
Yeah. I thought some great, plays out of the Patriots offense was definitely Aguilar. I thought played very well. I thought Jonnu also played very well. I think he had, 7 targets? He had 7 catches.
That's awesome.
I didn't
know that. I didn't know that.
And then the other thing, Aguilar had 5 receptions on 7 targets. He had 72 yards and a touchdown, obviously.
Yeah.
And I thought those were we had question marks as receivers coming into the year. Mm-hmm. They went out, they got some guys, Aguilar and Bourne. And they... Aguilar put up some numbers week 1. Looking at Bourne's numbers here, 1 reception, 3 targets, 17 yards. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the number 2 guy. It was definitely Jacoby.
100%.
And I thought Jacoby played well, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought Jacoby played really well. I think he's just he has such a leg up on... And this was last year, too, before he really did know what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he has such a grasp on our offense already. I think as a guy who was an ex-quarterback in college, you see that in his play. Like, you realize, I think Edelman was the exact same way.
Yep.
To where he has that quarterback mind to where it's a very hard offense to grab conceptually. And I think those guys who are used to that higher level of thinking, like Jacoby, are able to handle it a little better than most. So.
Yep, and looking back at Jonnu's stats, it's 5 for 5, not 7 for 7. Either way, no drops, everything thrown his way he caught, and that's definitely what you want to see. 42 yards out of him, average 8.4. That's pretty good.
I'd agree.
Not bad.
I wouldn't say it's a disappointment either, but Hunter Henry, I forgot, was on the team until the third quarter.
You want to know what, though? Looking
But
at his
afterwards,
stats,
I know.
three receptions, 3 targets.
I know. I think that's our best thing to build off because we got a little glimpse of it, and we expected the tight ends to be such a huge part of this offense.
And I think they will.
And I think they will be, too. It took a little bit for them to get going.
Yeah,
Johnny a little earlier than Hunter. But, yeah, I think they have a lot of room to grow, and I think they will grow quite a bit.
That's I think the completion percentage to the tight ends, especially, I think are the biggest thing that the Pats are able to do now with this offense. I think now that you got 2 guys very reliant at tight end, you can throw it to them and they're going to catch it 9 times out of 10.
Exactly, it's totally different than Ryan Izzo and all this stuff we were talking Matt Lacrosse from the past few years. Yeah.
Yep.
We've been looking for somebody since Gronk. Neither of these guys are Gronk, but hopefully together they can
definitely
produce the same production.
A step in the right direction for sure.
Absolutely. So last thing I want to touch on before we did move on to the next week, they won every major category besides turnovers and penalties. They won in total yards. They won in rushing yards, passing yards, yards per play. First downs, they had 24-16 on the Dolphins. They were moving the ball up and down the field. And that's why, going back to Mac real quick, oh, by the way, they were way better on third down, too, which speaks to Mac. Mm-hmm. They were 11 for 16 versus 4 and 11. And it just speaks to how important those penalties and those turnovers were. And for Mac, last thing, not to cut you off, is the red zone efficiency was the biggest downside of Mac, to where I think his weakest ability in terms of throwing is his straight-up arm strength. Like, if he has to gun it, he has to throw a BB to somebody really fast, he doesn't have, or he has to generate a lot of power to get what some other guys can do with Mahomes will flick his wrist. Yeah. And I'm not saying he has to be Patrick Mahomes with his arm strength, but, Mahomes, Allen, even Lamar, who I don't think is a particularly great or accurate passer,
I agree.
It comes off fast. And when he has to fit a tight window, even if he doesn't have the accuracy to do it, it could happen.
Yeah.
Jones, I think, it's so much more accuracy. And when he gets into the red zone and it's these tight situations and these tighter windows. You got to gun the
ball in there for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of situations where you got to gun it in. And I don't think his deficiencies there are too much to overcome or anything. No. I think they just need to come up with some different plays, more open looks.
Work on the red zone plays too.
Throws that he can make, absolutely. So I think that's definitely going to be something they stress on. Because if one of those field goal drives is a touchdown, you win the game. Mm-hmm. If you don't fumble and one of those 2 fumble drives turns into even a field goal, you win the game. Yeah. So and it's aggravating because this is the kind of game that you've built this roster to win for. Close games where a turnover here and there, the John Jones interception, is supposed to be the difference maker, and you're supposed to win these tight games that you're not designed to score 50 points.
Yeah, going back to that play too where John Jones is able to intercept that ball. That's a great pass rush that they got to Tua.
Judon blew him out.
He was definitely looking to throw that out of bounds. Mm-hmm. He chucked it up. He got hit. It stayed in. John Jones made a great play. I think you got lucky on that play because, like I said, I think he's going out of bounds with that ball. Mm-hmm. But it's a great play regardless. Getting to the QB, making the hit, forcing the ball still to be inbounds, and then making the interception. And that was a big turning point for them later to lose the game. But still, It was definitely a big play.
I wanted to touch on I know I keep saying last thing before we switch, but actual last thing on the penalties, specifically Matt Judon trying to fight the entire Dolphins bench. When you get a great punt return to the 47, right around the 50, and now you're all the way back at your own 35, and it's so concerning because I think this guy is, I don't know who else you would say, Steph's out. He's your best defensive player.
Yeah, he's definitely in the conversation, for sure.
And what are you doing? That's just, I think that's on people like Hightower. That's on people like Gerard Mayo coaching the backers. That just can't happen. Yeah. In a close game, you're that far into the other team's sideline talking shit to the bench. Come on. Can't happen. Can't happen.
Nah, I agree.
But needless to say, disappointing
Yeah.
first week against the Dolphins. It wasn't as clear-cut as everybody made it out to be. There were a fair amount of people, not a majority, but a fair amount that had the Dolphins winning that game.
I thought the Dolphins looked pretty decent.
Yeah. So it's not surprising.
No.
But if we move to next week, Patriots are traveling to New York to take on the 0-1 Jets. Start with you. What are you thinking?
Biggest thing, they need to send the blitz on more than half of their defensive plays. Zach Wilson looked very, very uncomfortable against Carolina. Carolina brought the heat, like more than half of the plays there. Got to him, made him look extremely uncomfortable. Stepping up in the pocket, rolling out. Either way, he didn't look comfortable at all. And I saw Wilson make a few good throws, a few decent ones, but other than that, I mean, he really didn't. He didn't perform very well at all.
Absolutely, and I will admit I am pretty biased, or not biased for any wrong reasons, but I've never really liked Zach Wilson coming out of college. I didn't get
the hype around him.
Yeah, I really didn't either.
I really didn't.
BU played a season where he only played BU league
BYU,
opponents.
Yeah.
And BYU, yeah. And like not a powerful school by any means, and he's making these plays against other league opponents. I didn't get all the hype. I went through, you did too, we watched every single non-handoff.
Yep.
And like I just thought I gave Mac the 7 out of 10. I gave Zach a 4, and I think it was being even
generous.
It might be a little generous. It might be more of a 3.5. He was awful in terms of accuracy. 20 of 37, 54%. Had the 2 touchdowns and a pick. The 2 touchdowns, I think, deserve an asterisk, honestly. It was towards the end of the game.
Well, one of them he almost underthrew, yeah.
82.9 passer rating, which was 23rd in the league, and 28.7 QBR, 24th in the league. Mac, by the way, was 8th last week, ahead of Tom Brady as well. But no, who cares? It's just he got sacked 6 times, and it wasn't. We agree that his line is horrendous.
Definitely, yes.
But did it need to be 6 sacks? I think it very realistically could have been more like 3, even more like 4 if we're being even more harsh on the line. But Zach Wilson just holds these footballs. He makes on the first one he makes a pump fake and then completely holds the ball and it's like just throw it away, just get rid of the ball, and that's something. Not to compare him too much to Mac, but Mac made those plays a lot more often last week. And then the decision making, I don't think was too bad in terms of who he is throwing to.
I don't think so either.
But the accuracy itself to those guys was a difference. I thought he rarely made good, like tight window throws. Like nothing even close to what we saw with Mac, with James, and those kind of throws.
I don't think that's something he can't work on. I think he can be a decent quarterback in the league. I don't think he's going to be he's not going to live up to the 2nd overall pick hype. I really don't think so. He had 1 pick last week against Carolina. I mean, that was Shaq Thompson. He made a great play. I mean, it wasn't a great throw by any means.
Shaq kind of baited him. He made a good throw either on that drive or the drive before. I think same drive where he hit him. And who's the backer?
Shaq Thompson?
Shaq Thompson, yeah. So Shaq Thompson was kind of lacking. This is earlier on in the drive, and he did hit a guy across the middle. It was his first big completion. And he tries to go back to that same the crosser across the middle.
He baited him, came back, tipped it up, picked it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The Patriots' defense is so heady in that sense, and they got Bill Belichick coaching him. I think they're just going to send this guy for a loop mentally.
I do, yeah. I agree.
I think
kind of like what they did with Darnold a couple of years ago.
Yes, I know. I referenced that last week, the whole see and ghost game, but I think you're set up for one of those big time right here.
And I mean, that's just the Belichick scheme. Mm-hmm. He really likes, just baiting the offense into thinking one thing, and then next thing you know, it's something totally different.
Yeah, I agree, and it's not every time. Obviously,
no.
Obviously made some decent throws, but sometimes when these receivers, I would say this isn't an actual number or anything, but I'd say 75%, 3/4 of his throws that he did complete were to guys with nobody in the vicinity.
Yeah.
Like they were wide open. And there was a few occasions, there was one drive to Barrios that we talked about.
We did,
He misses guys that are wide open.
He did.
He missed Barrios in the flat, and then on a 3rd and 12 with nobody 5 or 10 yards near him. Could have picked up a big 3rd and long.
Yep.
Air
2 yards short.
Right at his feet. Yeah. And it's like...
You can't have that, especially when you're wide open. Come on.
Yeah, and this is last year's stats for the Panthers defense, so obviously there is some turnover and there's some different names out there. Yeah. But they were 18th last year. The Patriots were 15th last year when everybody said we had the most depleted roster we've had in years. Things were in shambles. We added all 3 of those backers, these D linemen. I think Zach Wilson's just going to be making mistake after mistake.
Yeah.
So, I think that could jump us right into our predictions, basically. Because, are you concerned about the Jets' defense?
Honestly, no. I think, the strongest point for them is the D-line.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But the DBs didn't look well. I had this written down here for the offense. They got to look for deep balls. Because I saw Robbie Anderson had a beautiful, beautiful play call to him. Went for 50-something, 40-something yards, whatever it was. Went for a touchdown. They couldn't keep up with him, and he split the defense when they were in a cover 2, I want to say. Split the defense and ran for a 50-yard touchdown. And I think with someone like Aguilar or even Bourne, maybe even Jacoby, someone who's speedy enough to get past those DBs and make the catch and get a big play, I think that's what they got to do.
I agree. I think... We said it a little bit. I think the story of the Patriots offense versus the Jets defense, when we look back at it, if the Patriots just clean up their own mistakes, and I'm talking the O-line penalties and the turnovers.
We're 1-0 right now.
Yeah, exactly. But I think if you do that going into this game against the Jets, there's really no situation where the Jets defense is going to outperform you. If the Patriots have another bad week of offense, I think it's going to be more of they got to keep cleaning up these penalties. They got to keep not turning the ball over. That's what I think is going to hurt them.
Yeah.
If anything on offense, I think it's more about the Patriots' offense going out and executing what they're expected to do. And I think they should have no job winning this game if they do. So.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say about the Jets' defense, against Carolina, I really thought they did a good job making the first tackle. Mm-hmm. They didn't really give up too many broken tackle plays. The first guy on the ball was able to bring him down, and they did a good job rallying to the ball on defense too, I thought. But that being said, their coverage isn't great. Mm-hmm. Their run defense is all right. So Harris, he might have a tough going, but I don't think it's going to be anything too concerning for the Patriots offense.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have a final score prediction, anything?
Thinking about it, I really think the Pats are going to come out, and they, after we were talking about, they definitely got embarrassed as they lost last week, the way they lost. I think they're going to come out. They're going to come out ready, and I'm going to say 24-10 Pats. I think the defense is going to be very well against the pass, especially the pass, and then the run defense is going to play great because what I saw last week out of the Jets, I didn't see very, very good runs at all. So I'm not worried about that. Passing, I guess there's still question marks if Zach can come back and complete some of these passes he should have last week, but I'm not too worried about it either.
Yeah, I agree. I had him winning 27-13. I think it's going to spread pretty quick. I'm pretty confident that the Patriots are going to put up a decent amount of points early. I even think they drive down their first drive and score.
Yeah.
There's just been so much since the Miami loss, just all this talk about not being efficient on offense, not making the plays that you have to, not holding yourself back with penalties. I think they're going to come out fired up and make a pretty wide margin from the jump, and I think Zach Wilson will get a touchdown or two in garbage time he did last time when the game is pretty much wrapped up for all intents and purposes. So, I had 27-13. I think the defense is going to be playing with a big chip on their shoulder, too. I don't think you're going to see any stupid Judon-esque penalties. I think they realized how much plays like that cost them after last week.
Definitely, yeah. They should.
Yeah, they really should. So, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but both got them winning.
Yep.
If they don't, it will not be a happy podcast next week.
No, this is probably the biggest game where if they lose,
Yeah, it's a turning point. It's a big turning point.
Because you look at it and you're like, they're definitely in that playoff contention in the AFC. If you get beat by the Jets, man, come on.
You got to really think, too, especially with how good New Orleans just looked.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, really good.
Jameis looked very well.
So that Week 3 game goes from, we both had it as a win. Oh, yeah, they're rebuilding, Jameis, That's a good game now.
That's a question mark.
Either way, that could really go either way.
Their defense looked phenomenal.
Exactly. So now when you look at that and then you look at the Bucs Week 4, you got to make some plays here. This is one. I never want to say a Week 2 is a must win.
But this is a must win, and it really should be a win.
Yeah.
No matter what.
It's not a must win in terms of you couldn't come back from it, but it's a must win in the sense of
You can't go 0-4 to start the
year. Yeah, it's going to change the whole mindset of your team and what you are moving forward. So
definitely, yeah.
It's a big one. All right. I think that's good. Short and sweet this time this week.
Yeah, keep it short. We got the Jets, so hopefully that's a win.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of the PrimeTime Patriots podcast. We will see you next week.
Yep.
Go Pats.
Yes, sir.